Welcome everyone, I'm Lindsay Setchell and this is another It's Not Rocket Science lesson. Now it's been a while, hasn't it? I haven't been doing these for a while, but I thought, well, we're going to come back and we're going to start teaching again because many of you love these It's Not Rocket Science lessons, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so for this lesson, we're going to be talking about balance. Now this is a very, very important subject, but we're going to be talking about it in two ways. One, how the horse views balance, Whoop. How the horse views balance, and how the human views balance. Because those two things are not linked, not necessarily linked. How the human sees the balance and how the horse needs balance are often not linked. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And this part here, the balance, really what we want to be thinking about is anatomical balance, because that's what's important to the horse, anatomical balance. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? Look, there's my rocket. You've not seen one of those for a while. All right, okay, so here we go. This is a new board and it's already starting to stain. Look at that. Okay, so let's think about what balance means to the horse. So here we have a foot. We've got a little arch there. We're coming round to the heel. And then we've got this lovely coronary band. Now, to our eye, we look at that and we think, yeah, that's quite pleasing. That's not bad. That's quite pleasing. Now, some people would look at that and think, ooh, that's a very low heel. And they may see that version of a foot and think that's low heeled. But when you start looking at certain parameters, such as the coronary band angle, which nature shows us should be, for a naturally balanced foot, in the region of around about 30 degrees. Now, many people would disagree with that, but that's because they're looking at the hoof capsule and they're not linking that to the anatomical balance that the horse needs, e.g. P3. So we're going to explore that a little bit more. So there are various things that we can look at here. We've got a coronary band angle of around about 30 degrees. And we've got a nice looking hoof capsule. We've got the heel and the toe, both of which are on the ground. So if we imagine that this dotted line is the ground, we've got the heel and the toe on the ground. And that's really important. That's important for stability. That's important for the horse's foot that's on the ground. But this is the human, how we view the hoof capsule. But this may or may not relate to the anatomical balance inside, and that's P3. So P3 in here, should we draw it with a different colour? So P3 in here looks kind of like this. And that's a balanced P3. Can you see that? I think you can see that. Now, what's that showing us? That's showing us that it's running parallel with the dorsal face, the front face of the hoof capsule. And it's also what we call ground parallel. Now, in all the research that we've been doing, in all the rehabs that we've been doing, we find that there is a small amount of tolerance without stress inside the hoof capsule. What does that mean? That this line here, this is called the palmar angle, and there is a small amount of tolerance. In other words, that palmar angle can be slightly higher. And there doesn't appear to be a great deal of stress on that horse's foot, as long as we've still got toe and we've still got heel in play in the right proportions, in the right balance, so that we've still got a good coronary band angle. In other words, if that heel is a little bit higher, that toe would have to be a little bit longer in order for those proportions to stay balanced with P3. So here we have a balanced hoof capsule. We've got P3 inside, nicely balanced. Now, when a horse goes to walk and he is about to put his foot down, this this capsule is sort of positioned like this, as it's traveling across the ground like that. It travels like this. And at the very last minute, boop, the extensor tendon pulls this toe up. At that point then, the foot in the last split seconds lands flat. Now it should land flat. Again, there are lots of people on the planet that don't believe that, and we're going to explore why. When that foot lands flat on the ground, and you can easily check this out now because everybody's got a smartphone, you can watch your horse, maybe get somebody to walk your horse back and forward along a flat surface and get down on the ground quite low and set your smartphone to slow-mo, because you can't see it in real time properly. You need to see it in slow-mo, and just film your horse going back and forth. And then check to see what's happening. And check between the front and the back feet, because they may be doing two slightly different things. So this here is what we would call a balanced foot. It's not just balanced to our eye, it's also balanced anatomically. So let's just now take P3 and not the hoof capsule, and let's have a look at P3 at a slightly different position. So it's got a steeper face now because the angle of the palmar angle, this is this bit here, this bit is now raised. So now let's draw the hoof capsule around that. So we've now got a steeper angle at the face of P3. It may have a little bit of an arch, and then as we come up, we've got more heel and actually more toe to keep this foot balanced with its hoof capsule. Now, this foot, this hoof, the horse that belongs to this foot, may or may not be experiencing issues. It may be feeling a little bit footsore at times, potentially. Just a little bit off on harder ground. And the reason for that is that when the foot is in this position and the coronary band angle begins to change, we start to get little stresses around the capsule inside. So we're getting stresses in the soft tissues where the laminae belong. We're getting stresses in the coronary band. And you've got to remember that there's many people who believe that P3 can just, in this capsule here, keep moving around if the laminae are damaged. But that's not what we find. We find through all the rehabs that we're doing and all the x-rays that we take, that once you have P3 back into a stable position, you can keep it there. But I digress. Let's keep going on with balance. Okay, so we've got to this stage here. Now, we don't see any particular separation on an x-ray, but this horse might be feeling a little bit footsore. Now, one of the things that's very, very important is to understand that this heel height is directly related to the palmar angle. Once you understand that, and you understand that P3 cannot move around and float around independently, that gives us really great options when we're rehabbing horses that have gone far away from this foot here. Because that means that as long as we understand that, we can bring this foot back into better balance that is not straining and putting stresses on the soft tissues inside. So this foot here, if we were to bring this foot back into balance, we'd be thinking about the heel here. Now, remember when we said that the horse's foot travels like this, but as it's off the ground and it just skims the ground, doesn't touch the ground, the horse knows where its toe is, and it comes along, and at the last minute, boop, the extensor tendon pulls the front of the foot up, and then the foot should, boop, land flat. However, in these situations, when we have more heel than we should have, when that foot is pulling up to, the extensor tendon is pulling up, it's pulling up for anatomical balance. In other words, it's thinking about P3, not its capsule. That means that at that point, the heel is likely to hit the ground first, not the toe. It's going to be the heel here. This area here is going to hit the ground first. Now, if we haven't got a balanced hoof capsule and somebody, you go and have your horse walking across the ground in front of you, and you've got your camera down there and you're at slow-mo, and you go, well, that's really interesting, because on the hind feet, and you need to do this when the horse has just been trimmed, on the hind feet, they're landing flat. Look at them, flat, 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 flat. But on the front feet, they're landing slightly heel, and they're going heel, toe, and then the horse loads. In this instance here, when this horse lands flat, he immediately can load his fetlock. However, on this side here, he has a bit of a delay, and that affects the stride length. So there's a bit of a delay. The heel lands, then the toe lands, then the horse is able to load, because they can't load unless the whole foot is on the ground. So this is a very common situation, that we take a foot like this. This would be a foot in, for instance, on a Mustang in the Great Basin. The ground is doing all the work, not the human. They're not having to come along and trim. The ground is doing it, and this foot is being kept balanced all the time. But then they move into the domestic realm, and horses just don't move enough. They just don't. And it's then up to the hoof care professional to keep that foot in balance. But now we start to have problems, because if that ground is not doing its job every single day, then parts of this foot are going to start to grow out of balance. They're not going to be able to keep in balance. For instance, the heel's going a little bit too long. But when we have heel and toe working together, that's not so much of an issue. It isn't perfect, but it isn't so much of an issue. We may be having stresses and strains. The horse might be feeling a little bit footsore at times, not all the time. Maybe over gravelly ground, maybe over hard ground. And people tend to think that that's because of the sole here. They think, oh, this is where the pain's coming in. More often than not, it's not to do with that. What's happening is the pain is coming from within the capsule. And on top of that, we've got issues with bars. I would encourage you to go back and watch the It's Not Rocket Science lesson on bars. That might help you there. So now we've got this scenario here. But something tends to happen at this stage. Because we're now starting to see a bigger capsule, people tend to look at this, and they're looking down here at the toe, and they go, oops, they go, hang on a minute. That there, I'll use green, this toe, boop. Oh no, that toe's looking a little bit long. I don't like it. I don't think the horse should have a long toe, because the world has been taught that if this toe is long here, that's going to put strain on this lamini. Well, in our research and our rehabs, we've found that that's not actually the case. That doesn't happen at all when a foot's balanced. You can get problems with toes and heels, but we're talking about balance. We're talking about anatomical balance. So we look at this, the human comes along, many professionals and owners, but it's a lot in the professional realm, and we look at this and we go, that looks too long. So we're just gonna back it up a little bit, shorten the toe. Now we start by just taking the tip off. Now that's bad enough as it is, because the waterline, which is nature's horseshoe, is the bit that's now just been removed. So we're in this situation now, and we don't like the toe, but rather than just take a tiny bit, what tends to happen is we tend to start backing this toe up, because we don't like this length. It looks odd. So now we have a situation where we start to get into this. Let's draw P3 in again. Now P3 is starting to change angle. It's getting steeper. And the palmar angle is now going up. Why? Well, because we've affected the growth rates of the hoof capsule. Not many people think about this, not many people talk about it, but this hoof capsule has a very specific growth rate, between heel and toe, and everything is working in harmony until it isn't. So now we have a situation like this, and if we were to x-ray this horse, we'd find we have more of a problem, because now we've got this kind of capsule. Now I have to tell you that all horses start like this. All horses should be like that. But now we've gone through 2 iterations of what this capsule is looking like. And nobody took a photograph of or understood what balance should be. So we're messing around in this area now. We don't understand that the foot should be like this. So now we've gone over into the realms of this. Now, this horse, he's now suffering quite badly. He's got a lot of pain going on in this foot. There's a lot of pain, and this horse isn't just footsore, he's actually starting to be very compromised. So we get an x-ray done, we see this amount of stretch, and we declare that this horse has got laminitis. And that is a very scary diagnosis for any owner, at which point they start thinking about the diet. They start thinking about what things they've gone wrong with the diet. Was the horse on grass? Was the horse being fed lots of bagged feeds? Is it overweight? Is it EMS? Has the horse got equine metabolic syndrome? Has it got PPID? Has it got equine Cushing's? And so we start looking at those issues, and nobody goes, hang on a minute. We actually have really quite a high palmar angle here. But because the world has got so confused with palmar angles, not really quite sure about palmar angles, everybody's got their own opinion, some people will look at that and think, that's not so bad. We look at that as rehab specialists and we go, oh yeah, that's pretty bad. Because here we were in the footsore kind of range, but we weren't really separating at that point. Now we're not just footsore, we're hurting. And the reason for that is because this line, look how far forward this line has gone now. This is following the natural P3. Look how much heel excess there is now. And what we actually have is we have growth rates here and growth rates here that are now not the same. This one is super slow and this one is much faster. Why? Because this area here, this whole section here is being removed and it's not sending feedback up to the little papillae that live in the coronary band. So that's a real problem, because once this starts to happen, you trying to keep on top of this is a nightmare. This horse, if he was on a 6-week cycle, be absolutely fine. No problems at all. These 2 horses here, when they're put on a 6-week cycle, for instance, we've got a problem, because the hoof care professional comes along, they don't quite take enough heel, and they may be different on every single foot of that horse because they're not being measured. And the heels are different, and we're not even talking about mediolateral balance, we're talking about also palmar balance and the effect that it has on the soundness and issues that the horse suffers from being uncomfortable. And they start taking more toe off. Now we get to this scenario. We've taken off more toe because we recognize that it's getting longer. It appears to be because the angle is changing. The angle from here to here has changed. And in order to keep this, what looks like running true with the horse's leg, we've got to alter the hoof capsule to make that appearance true. But the problem you then have is that that is not working with anatomical balance. So now we have the situation of this is what the human thinks is correct. Here's the human going, yes, I think that is correct. And the horse, well, the horse, poor horsey, I'm sorry about my pictures. This is horsey, this is jaw. And he, oh God, Lindsay, he's like that. No, I'm not happy. I wasn't happy particularly here. I was getting by, but here I'm super not happy. And the world is running around. The humans are going, oh my God, it's diet, it's everything else. And nobody's gone, hang on a minute, this hoof capsule looks nothing like a balanced. Now, one of the things you can do is you can go and check the hind feet. Does the front feet, do they look like the hind feet? Have you been taking photos? No. Well, have them trimmed and then have a look. If they don't look the same, the anatomy is the same inside. There may be a very slight change in angle in terms of the dorsal wall, the face of P3, but the anatomy is still the same. So if you look at a hind foot and you look at a front foot and they're telling you this horse has laminitis, which is a metabolic condition caused by a metabolic issue, why aren't the hind feet being affected? Why are the hind feet still landing fairly flat? Why are the front feet landing heel first and are starting to look really crazy? It's not easy to grow heels on the hinds, and therefore oftentimes what happens is we end up going into the opposite of what we have here, which is a hyperpositive P3, and we end up going negative. But there are rocket science lessons on that, and I'll do some more on them as we go forward. Now, the human comes along again, and he starts looking at this, and the human's going, oh, that's a big no. That toe is looking wrong. I'm worried about the toe. We need to take more toe off. Now, the problem is, guys, that this has been going on now, particularly this technique, for at least 2 decades, particularly in the last 15 years and in the last 10 years. And it's not solving the problem. Horses are not being cured from laminitis because nobody is looking at the changes that happens to the hoof capsule because nobody's taken any photographs. They've got x-rays, they see P3 in the wrong position, and they assume the foot is still balanced. We've got 2 problems. We've got the capsule, which is now not balanced with P3 inside. It was when we were here, and it's gradually becoming more out of balance. So now we start intervening big time. We might start putting a wedge on. Maybe we might start taking the toe off even more. Maybe we'll start resecting. This foot is now in distress. It was starting to be in distress here, and it's in super distress here. We probably have long bars. We're getting infection in the foot. P3 is under, the tip of P3 is under incredibly more strain and pressure and force than this ever was. So instead of understanding that we need to put P3 back into balance and then grow a better hoof capsule around that, we don't. We tend to think that P3 is doing its own thing in there, aided and abetted by the DDFT. And so what we do is we attack the hoof capsule more until eventually we're in a situation very much like this, which looks crazy, but is a super hyperpositive P3. And we've taken off more toe, and we've got a situation like this until actually what we have is that coronary band angle looking more and more horizontal. Now that's a big problem for the horse. Now we've got these super high heels, and now we've got this very short toe, and we've got an inordinate amount of pain in here. Everywhere in the foot, you've got pain. This horse is now suffering badly. And oftentimes, these are the horses that HM and GTL, Gawsworth Track Livery, come across when they're in this state here. This is a catastrophic state for a horse to be in. And oftentimes you'll find the back feet aren't anything like the front. When they're x-raying the front, they're like this. Everybody again has been thinking diet is the problem. But actual fact, look how far this foot has gone out of its anatomical balance. So now this foot, let's just draw that in a little bit better there. Whoop. This foot now, in order to bring it back into balance, we've got quite a lot of work to do, but we have to be super careful not to touch anything here at the front of the foot. This horse, without a shadow of a doubt, while it's walking, if it can walk, will be walking with its heel first. The toe has been removed. This growth has slowed right down. This is super slow now. And this is going out of control because this is hyperstimulated. And so what's going on now is that these horses are now left on a 6-week cycle and they can't keep on top of it. The heels just keep going up, the toe just keeps being taken off, and you just keep perpetuating the problem, making it worse and worse and worse. So what should you do? Well, HM and GTL will come across a foot like this. Immediately we can see it's not balanced. So we go and do a realignment where we take this heel away. We don't touch the toe. But as soon as we do that, we have an interesting dilemma, because let's put P3. Oh, and incidentally, before we do that, this P3 starts to go through what we call osteonecrosis because of the amount of pressure that is now happening underneath the tip of P3 from above and from the ground. This is serious because once bone starts to disappear through starvation in this area here, once bone starts to disappear, you can't grow it back. They're not salamanders, they don't grow parts of their body back, in this instance with the bone. So once that's gone, the more it goes, the more of a problem it's going to be to bring that horse back to any form of good continued soundness. They may be able to be sound in boots, and then there are situations where they'll never get sound in boots either. And without particular attention being paid to these heels on a super regular basis, you will never grow a decent hoof capsule around this area here because this horse has got so much damage. But let's just assume that we've taken this horse on, it doesn't have that much damage, and I'm going to draw this in the middle. I haven't got a lot of space. Let's just take the horse away. Let's take all this away for a minute. And we've taken this horse and it has a little bit of damage here and we're bringing it back. Now, sometimes we have damage here too, at the back of P3. In fact, in many areas of P3, not just at the tip. So we've taken this foot and we've done this realignment. We're bringing it back into anatomical balance as best we can. If we can get it ground parallel, brilliant. But oftentimes we can't even get that close to it because it's been so damaged. The hoof capsule and P3 are not working together as they used to. However, we've now got a situation where we've created a better balance in this foot from this anatomical balance. But we've got this separation here. Do you see this separation that was getting wider and wider and wider? That's still there. That is still there. So when we've done this realignment, we now have a situation like this. Oh, same length of toe, but it looks longer now to the human eye because it doesn't look like that, which to the human almost feels good. So a human's looking at this and going, oh, well, that one looks too low in the heel. This one is low heel and long toe. And in fact, actually, we have a situation going on like this because now we haven't got this toe anywhere near the ground. And what we should have, if we're helping this horse, is that. Now that's when the world freaks out. The horse, once he gets to this stage, he's not sad anymore. He is super happy. He's getting sounder, he's not got any more pressure on P3, and he's very, very happy, even when we haven't got this on the ground and it's still coming down. And for those horses that have super osteonecrosis, this is unlikely to ever happen. Because of all this that they've been going through, they may never get that toe back on the ground and it may just curl up. At that point then, we've got other issues going on, and that's something that I can talk to you about in another lesson. But once we have this situation here, our priority are these heels because they are still going fast. That is still going slow. Our priority is to keep these heels down, and then over time, what will happen is this will then, come on Lindsay, this will then start to grow in a better toe. But it looks weird because we start to have this weird long toe. The world's freaking out. They think it's really bad. They think the horse is going to be in dire straits. It's abusive. No. This was starting to be abusive because anatomical balance had been lost. The human thought the foot looked okay, had no clue what was going on with P3 inside. So the reality is in these horses, and I'm not going to talk too much about rehab now, but the reality is in these horses, let's just take his horse's head away, is that we have a cycle going on all the time. There's this cycle, and most horses are in this area here. Few end up being perfectly balanced, and those that do, those are the rock crunching sound horses that you find out there that are barefoot. All the others that are wafting around in this state often need intervention from boots or shoes because they don't feel right without shoes or without boots. Raising their foot off the ground, giving them a little bit of a crutch. But really all horses should be like that. But all horses won't get to that unless hoof care professionals understand that this cycle is going on and on all the time. And this cycle is your laminitis. Your laminitis. I had to say that slowly then. That's your laminitis cycle going on like this. All the time. We may go from good to not great, but we're coping, to now we're not really coping and we're being called laminitis, to absolutely definitely not. And those horses, and often ponies and horses that have been declared laminitic, they go back and forth in this scenario over and over again until eventually they can't keep on top of the heels. They keep taking the toe off, and this horse is no more. Sometimes horses are no more at this stage because people can't cope with the laminitic flare-ups. But the flare-ups are simply the hoof capsule growing out of balance with P3 inside. So when you get to a situation where you want to fix this and you want to be looking at this hoof capsule, remember it should have been like this and it's gone all the way around here, and to get it back to that is possible as long as you haven't got damage to P3, but you can certainly get a capsule or a hoof capsule and a horse, a hoof capsule more balanced and a horse definitely sounder. And one final thing I just want to show you here. Let's just take this off a minute. I've got my cross on there. Is that nature always wants balance. And if you imagine this foot here, this foot is balanced. This is how nature wanted this foot. But look at this. Let's go to this one here. Do you think this one, that's the top of the heel height? Look at the difference between that and that. That foot isn't balanced and is way out of balance. And every time we mess around, we let those heels go longer because we think we either need to upright or we're trying to keep that hoof pastern axis. That's the front of the hoof capsule to the leg. We're all forgetting in line. We're all forgetting about P3 inside. This is here anatomical balance. Anatomical balance for the horse is what this is, and it's what the horse needs. That, and that is what the human thinks is balance. And right there, that's why we have horses being declared laminitic, no matter how much humans these days and owners try and fix their diet. This is the problem, hoof capsule imbalance. I hope that helped. I'm coming back hopefully next week with another It's Not Rocket Science lesson, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.